These individuals, first what I want to tell you is these individuals sleep all day and are up all night. All 13 of the victims, including the defendants, typically go to sleep around 4 or 5 in the morning, sleep all day, and then be up all through the night. The victims report that as a punishment, starting many years ago, they began to be tied up. First with ropes. One victim at one point was tied up and hog-tied. And then when that victim was able to escape the ropes, these defendants eventually began using chains and padlocks to chain up the victims to their beds. These, as I said, these were a form of punishment meted out on these children and these adults. These punishments would last for weeks or even months at a time. The evidence is that 3 victims were chained up at the time the police first knocked on the door at the home in Paris. The defendants were able to get 2 of the victims unchained before the police actually entered. An 11 and 14-year-old were unchained as the police stood at the door, while a 22-year-old remained chained to a bed when the police entered the home. Circumstantial evidence in the house suggests that the victims were often not released from their chains to go to the bathroom. The 17-year-old victim that escaped had been working on a plan with her siblings to escape this abuse for more than 2 years. She escaped through a window and took one of her siblings with her. That sibling eventually turned back, became frightened and turned back, and went back into the house. The neglect and abuse started when the family lived in the Fort Worth area of Texas, with the parents at one point living apart from most of the children and dropping off food from time to time. The defendants lived in Texas for 17 years. In 2010, they moved to Murrieta, California, and in 2014 moved to their current residence in Paris, California, both, of course, in Riverside County. The abuse and severe neglect intensified over time and intensified as they moved to California. All the victims have now been examined by doctors and medical professionals. All the victims were and are severely malnourished. Specifically, severe caloric malnutrition associated with muscle wasting. To give you an example, one of the children at age 12 is the weight of an average 7-year-old. The 29-year-old female victim weighs 82 pounds. Several of the victims have cognitive impairment and neuropathy, which is nerve damage as a result of this extreme and prolonged physical abuse. None of the victims were allowed to shower more than once a year. I want to give you a quick example. One of the reasons for and this is all alleged conduct, I do want to mention that. One of the reasons for these punishments of being chained up to a bed were that, and by the way, the punishments included frequent beatings and even strangulation. One of the reasons for the punishments were if the children were found to wash their hands above the wrist area, they were accused of playing in the water, and they would be chained up. None of the victims have seen a doctor in more than 4 years. None of the victims have ever seen a dentist. The children were, when they were not chained up, locked in different rooms and fed very little on a schedule. They were not allowed to have toys, although there were many toys found in the house that were in their original package and had never been opened. Supposedly homeschooled, the children lack a basic knowledge of life. Many of the children didn't know what a police officer was. The 17-year-old, when asked if there was medication or pills in the home, didn't know what medication or pills were. About the only thing the children were allowed to do in their rooms or chained up was to write in journals. We now have recovered those journals, hundreds of them, and we are combing through them for evidence. One other thing, the parents would apparently buy food for themselves and not allow the children to eat it. They would buy food, including pies, apple pies, pumpkin pies, leave it on the counter, let the children look at it, but not eat the food. It's a very complex case. It's important that we gather and analyze this evidence. Based on the information I've shared with you today, it's my hope that members of the public will come forward with any information about this family or these crimes that could aid us in this ongoing investigation and case. If anyone out there has additional information, please call Senior Investigator Wade Walsvik at 951-955-5400, and I'll provide his email later. I do want to say a note of thanks to the Sheriff's Department. They've conducted a professional and excellent investigation, and we're working very closely with Sheriff's investigators. I do also want to mention, before I open it up for questions, this case is going to be handled in a sensitive way. As I said, we're fully prepared to seek justice, but we have to do it in a way that protects these victims. They have been severely hurt and damaged, and we cannot cause them any further damage. At this time, I want to call up Melissa Donaldson. Melissa Donaldson is the director of our Victim Services Division. Just want to have her say a few words about our response, the district attorney's response from the victim side.
Good morning. Victim Services provide services to the victims of all crime types. In specific, these victims, there are so many that are minors and adults. We're going to be having 3 advocates that will be assisting and providing services to these children and adults. As Mike described, there are multiple issues with all these children, and they are going to take long-term help. Our victim advocates will go to court, they will work with CPS, and we will provide long-term and short-term services to make sure that they are not re-victimized and that we can help them move as far ahead on their health as we can. We also have a crisis response team that we've developed here in the DA's office, and those victim advocates are specially trained in mass casualty and victimization, and those staff are ready and serving the victims as well.
Okay, at this time I'll take questions. Yes. The lewd act is in reference to just that, a lewd act that we're alleging that David Turpin touched one of the victims in a lewd way by using force or fear.
Are David and Louise the biological parents of the 2-year-old?
I'd be speculating at this point. We are looking into all of those things, and that's part of the ongoing nature of the investigation.
Why did they do this?
Why did they do this?
What did they get out of having their kids look really small and having the same haircuts and all that?
You know, I don't know that I can answer that completely, but I'll tell you that as a prosecutor, there are cases that stick with you, that haunt you, and you know, sometimes in this business we're faced with looking at human depravity, and that's what we're looking at here.
Family members say that they become increasingly religious over the years, and their religion has become eclectic. Did religion have a role in whatever was going on? Some sort of religious right or cult?
Not that I know of.
Are you saying some of the children might not?
Hold on, I'm gonna call out people.
Where torture and mention, no one came forward, no one noticed what was happening?
It appears that no one noticed what was happening. Part of that is what I shared with you at the very beginning, is that the family, these individuals, slept all day and were up in the middle of the night, all night. They were up all night, all of them, not just the parents. Yes?
Mike, how did this family earn income? Did they have money coming in, and how did they get that money?
Yes, we're looking at that. Not totally clear at this point, but we do know that David Turpin did have a job. He was employed. They did have money coming in. They were able to buy things. They bought a lot of toys that they never opened. They bought other things. They bought food that they ate and that didn't share with their children. Yes?
From talking to the neighbors, they say some of the older kids attended a local college. Is it your knowledge that some of the older kids were actually able to leave the house at some point in time?
Yes. So at least one of the older victims attended classes. I don't know about full college experience, but attended classes. What we know so far is that Louise Turpin would accompany him, wait outside of the classroom for him. When he was finished with class, she would take him home.
Sir, can I ask you?
Yes.
Can you characterize the type of control these children and the young adults were under 24 hours a day?
This is severe, emotional, physical abuse. There's no way around that. This is depraved conduct. Yes, sir.
So, yeah, can you address, you said that there's 12 counts against them for torture. Why not 13? Is 13...
Because it's a good question. We are not charging torture on the 2-year-old. The 2-year-old, don't know why, but apparently the 2-year-old was getting enough to eat, so we're not going to charge torture against the 2-year-old. The basis of our torture charge is not just one thing, but it's a combination of severe abuse over time. Yes, sir.
Could you please give us a rundown of the evidence that you will present in court?
No, I cannot do that. Sorry. Yes, sir.
The situation with the kids, when they're able to leave a hospital, will they be put in the foster care system? Will we treat them differently? And can you describe right now primarily the mental condition as opposed to physical?
They're relieved. I will say that. They're in good hands. They're being cared for. They're all in the hospital. Their well-being is being looked at. Their health is being looked at. They're in good hands. As far as where they're going to end up, I don't know. We are going to do everything we can to assist them through our Victim Services Division, and hopefully they'll be cared for throughout this process. Yes, sir.
There's 2 questions. You may have said the first one. Number 1, how many times did they eat a day? And the second question, so much did they to sort of herald the courage that took this 17-year-old girl to get out. And you mentioned that some of the kids didn't even know what a police officer was. So can you elaborate on the 2-year plan that they were making to, clearly some of the kids must have known that you can get help, like had that kind of educational understanding?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's a variety, there's a range of thought here. So that's all I can share is that there was a plan for 2 years. As to the details of what went into the plan, at this point I don't know all the details, and that certainly will come out in court. Let me go down here. Yes. Oh, we don't know. I don't know exactly how many times they ate a day. That'll come out later. Yes.
Have you questioned them? Have they said something about why they did this?
I can't comment about that. Yes, sir.
What do you think the significance of the hundreds of journals that were collected?
I think they will be very significant. I think those journals are going to be strong evidence of what occurred in that home.
Has there been a range of reaction for the kids? The older kids seemingly wanting to go back with their family versus the younger kids perhaps being more open to getting away from their family?
Not really, no. The kids are relieved, yes.
Mike,
I'm sorry.
you mentioned that the 17-year-old plotted the escape. Why do you think it was the 17-year-old and not the older kids who may have plotted to try to get away?
Well, I don't know. I'd be speculating.
And would you say that they were brainwashed?
I don't know. I'd be speculating to answer that question like that. Let me go over here. Yes.
Mike, you mentioned there was another sibling that escaped initially with the 17-year-old.
Yes.
Can you elaborate more on that, the age of that sibling, and why she perhaps turned back?
She was frightened. That's all I can say. Is it there were 2 of them that left the house. One of them turned back because she was frightened.
What was the age of the second sibling?
I'm not going to comment on that. Anything else? Yes. Well, the charge is lewd act under a child 14 years of age. So it would be under 14 years of age. No, I'm not going to identify.
Did you get any reaction that the kids had?
No, other than I'm just going to tell you they're relieved. Yes.
Was this a one-time thing that you believe, or was it over the course of many years?
Right now, we are charging 1 count of lewd act. This is an ongoing investigation. I will tell you this: that if our investigation uncovers more crime, we will charge more offenses.
Sir, the lewd act was done to a female or a male?
It's to a female.
Sir,